The beautiful ballroom at Lakeside Country Club was filled with white roses and soft piano music. Golden lights hung from the ceiling, making everything look perfect for Marcus Thompson's wedding day. He stood near the dance floor in his black suit, smiling as he watched his new wife Keisha talk to some guests. She looked amazing in her white wedding dress, her dark skin glowing under the warm lights. Marcus felt like the luckiest man in the world. At 45, he never thought he would find love like this. Keisha was 32, smart, and beautiful. They had been together for 2 years, but it felt like they had known each other forever. He owned a successful tech company and had worked hard to build his life. Now he finally had someone special to share it with, but not everyone at the wedding was happy. In the corner near the bar, Marcus's sister Linda was talking quietly to her husband Paul. She kept looking at Keisha with narrow eyes. Linda was 2 years older than Marcus and had always been protective of him. Maybe too protective. "I just don't understand what he sees in her," Linda whispered to Paul. "Look at her, she's so much younger than him and she's clearly after his money." Paul sipped his wine and nodded. "The age difference is pretty obvious. 13 years is a lot." "It's not just the age," Linda said, shaking her head. "It's everything. She comes from nowhere and now she's living in his big house, driving his expensive cars. It's so clear what she's doing." At another table, Marcus's business partner Kevin was having a similar conversation with his wife Amy. Kevin had been Marcus's friend since college. They started the tech company together 10 years ago, and it had made them both very wealthy. "I tried to talk to Marcus about a prenup," Kevin said quietly, "but he wouldn't listen. He said love doesn't need contracts." Amy looked across the room at Keisha, who was laughing with some other guests. "She seems nice enough, but you never know with these situations. Some women are very good at hiding their real reasons." Kevin nodded. "Marcus is smart with business, but when it comes to women, he can be blind. I hope he doesn't regret this." Near the head table, Marcus's parents were watching everything with worried faces. His father Robert had built a successful real estate business over 30 years. The family had old money and strong opinions about who belonged in their social circle. "I don't like this, Patricia," Robert said to his wife. "Marcus could have married anyone. There are plenty of nice women from good families who would have been perfect for him." Patricia Thompson adjusted her pearl necklace and sighed. "I know, dear. But what can we do? He's made his choice. We just have to hope it works out." "Hope?" Robert's voice got a little louder. "She's clearly using him. Look at those expensive earrings she's wearing. That dress probably cost more than most people make in a month. Where does a girl like her get that kind of money?" Patricia looked uncomfortable. "Robert, please keep your voice down. People will hear you." But people were already talking. All around the ballroom, Marcus's friends and family members were having quiet conversations about the same thing. They all thought Keisha was a gold digger who had trapped their successful. Mrs. Henderson, who lived next door to Marcus's parents, was talking to her friend Mrs. Clark at their table. Both women had known Marcus since he was a little boy. "It's such a shame," Mrs. Henderson said, shaking her gray head. "Marcus is such a good boy. He deserves better than this." "Young women today have no shame," Mrs. Clark agreed. "They see a successful man and think they can just take what he has. In our day, people married for the right reasons." Keisha could feel the stares and hear some of the whispers. She had dealt with this kind of treatment before, but never on her wedding day. She tried to stay positive and enjoy the celebration, but it was hard when she could see the disapproval on so many faces. She was talking to Marcus's cousin Janet, who was one of the few family members who had been kind to her. Janet was about the same age as Keisha and worked as a teacher. "Don't let them get to you," Janet whispered. "Some of the family can be pretty stuck up. They think they're better than everyone else." Keisha smiled sadly. "I just want them to give me a chance. I really love Marcus. This isn't about money for me." "I know that," Janet said. "Anyone who sees you two together can tell you really care about each other. But some people see what they want to see." At that moment, Marcus walked over to his new wife. He could tell something was bothering her even though she was trying to hide it. "Hey, beautiful. he said, putting his arm around her waist. Having fun? Keisha leaned into him and smiled. Of course. It's our wedding day. But Marcus wasn't fooled. He had noticed the cold looks from his family. He had heard some of the comments when people thought he wasn't listening. It made him angry, but he didn't want to ruin their special day with family drama. Want to dance? He asked. I'd love to, Keisha said. They walked to the dance floor as the band started playing their wedding song. As they moved together slowly, Marcus whispered in her ear, I'm sorry about some of the family. They'll come around once they get to know. You better. Keisha looked up at him with love in her eyes. It's okay. I knew this might happen. We just need to be patient. But as they danced, both of them could feel all the eyes watching them. Some guests were smiling and seemed happy for them, but too many others were whispering and shaking their heads. Linda watched from her table and turned to her husband again. Look at how she's holding on to him, like she's afraid someone might take him away. She knows exactly what she's doing. Kevin raised his glass to the dancing couple, but his smile looked forced. I just hope Marcus knows what he's getting into. The evening continued with dinner and more dancing. Some guests came up to congratulate the happy couple, but their words felt empty. Others avoided them completely. By the time the night was ending, both Marcus and Keisha were tired from pretending everything was fine. As they said goodbye to the last guests, Linda gave Marcus a big hug. I love you, little brother, she said. I just want you to be happy and safe. Marcus hugged her back, but he could hear the warning in her words. I am happy, Linda. Really happy. Linda looked at Keisha and gave her a small, cold smile. Welcome to the family, Keisha. I hope you'll be very happy together. But her tone said something completely different. As Marcus and Keisha finally left for their honeymoon, neither of them knew that this was just the beginning. The family's suspicions and cold treatment would only get worse over time, and none of them had any idea about the secret that Keisha was keeping. A secret that would change everything they thought they knew about her. 6 months had passed since Marcus and Keisha's wedding, and married life should have been wonderful. They lived in Marcus's beautiful house in the hills, with big windows that looked out over the city. Keisha had moved in all her things, and they had created a warm home together. But there was one big problem that wouldn't go away. Marcus's family still treated Keisha like she didn't belong. It was Robert Thompson's 70th birthday, and the whole family was meeting at the fancy steakhouse downtown. Marcus was excited to celebrate his father's special day, but Keisha felt sick to her stomach thinking about spending the evening with his family. She stood in front of their bedroom mirror, trying to decide what to wear. Everything seemed wrong. If she wore something simple, they would think she was trying too hard to fit in. If she wore something nice, they would say she was showing off Marcus's money. You look beautiful, Marcus said, coming up behind her. He was wearing a dark blue suit and looked handsome as always. I don't know about this dinner, Keisha said quietly. Maybe I should stay home. Say I'm not feeling well. Marcus turned her around to face him. Hey, you're my wife. I want you there with me. Dad's birthday is important and you're part of this family now. Keisha wanted to believe that, but the last 6 months had been hard. Every family gathering was the same. Cold smiles, awkward conversations, and whispered comments when they thought she couldn't hear. At the restaurant, the Thompson family had reserved a private dining room. The table was set with white flowers and expensive wine. Robert sat at the head of the table, looking proud in his gray suit. Patricia sat next to him, wearing her pearls and a smile that never reached her eyes when she looked at Keisha. Linda was already there with her husband Paul and their 2 teenage kids. She gave Marcus a warm hug and barely nodded at Keisha. Kevin and his wife Amy were there too, along with a few other relatives Keisha didn't know very well. Happy birthday, Dad, Marcus said, giving his father a big hug. 70 looks good on you. Robert smiled and patted his son on the back. Thank you, son. I'm glad you're here. When Marcus stepped aside, Keisha stepped forward with a wrapped gift. She had spent weeks finding the perfect present for Robert. It was an old book, about real estate development that she knew he would love. "Happy birthday, Mr. Thompson," she said, offering him the gift. Robert took it with a polite but distant smile. "Thank you, Keisha. That's very thoughtful." But he set it aside without opening it, like it wasn't important. Keisha felt her cheeks get hot with embarrassment. During dinner, the conversation flowed around Keisha like she wasn't even there. The family talked about business, old friends, and memories from when Marcus was growing up. Nobody asked Keisha any questions or tried to include her in the conversations. Linda was sitting across from Keisha and kept staring at her jewelry. Keisha was wearing a simple gold necklace and matching earrings, but Linda looked at them like they were made of diamonds. "That's a lovely necklace, Keisha," Linda said, but her voice didn't sound friendly. "It looks expensive. Where did you get it?" Keisha touched the necklace nervously. "It was a gift from Marcus for our 6-month anniversary." "How nice," Linda said with a fake smile. "Marcus has always been generous with his money. Some people are very lucky to have that kind of lifestyle." The way she said "some people" made it clear who she was talking about. Keisha felt Marcus tense up next to her, but she put her hand on his arm to keep him calm. Kevin jumped into the conversation. "Speaking of money, Marcus, how's the business doing? I heard the Johnson contract might be delayed." Marcus nodded. "We're working through some issues, but everything should be fine." "Good thing you have a safety net," Kevin said with a laugh. "Though I still think you should have gotten that prenup we talked about. Just to be safe, you know?" Amy giggled. Kevin's always thinking about business, even at family dinners. But everyone at the table knew what Kevin was really saying. He was reminding everyone that Marcus had married Keisha without protecting his money. The comment hung in the air like a bad smell. Keisha felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Patricia tried to change the subject. "Keisha, dear, are you working anywhere now? I don't think you ever told us what you do for a living." This was dangerous territory. Keisha had a college degree and had worked before, but she didn't need to work now. She spent her time volunteering and taking care of their home. But she knew how that would sound to this family. "I'm between jobs right now," Keisha said carefully. "I'm looking into some volunteer opportunities with children's charities." Linda snorted softly. "How nice that you have time for volunteering. Must be wonderful not to have to worry about paying bills." "Linda," Marcus said firmly. "That's enough." But Linda wasn't done. "I'm just saying, some of us have to work for a living. We can't all marry into a comfortable lifestyle." The table went quiet. Even Paul looked embarrassed by his wife's words, but Linda seemed proud of herself for finally saying what everyone was thinking. Keisha stood up slowly. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." She walked out of the dining room with her head held high, but inside she was breaking apart. In the bathroom, she looked at herself in the mirror and tried to stop her hands from shaking. She heard the door open behind her. It was Patricia. "Keisha, dear, I wanted to apologize for Linda. She can be a bit direct sometimes." Keisha turned around. "Mrs. Thompson, can I ask you something? What did I do wrong? I love your son. I make him happy. Why can't you accept that?" Patricia looked uncomfortable. "It's not personal, dear. It's just that Marcus has always been trusting, maybe too trusting. We worry about him." "You think I'm using him for his money?" Patricia didn't deny it. "I think young women today sometimes have different priorities than we did. Marriage used to be about building a life together. Now it seems like it's about finding security." Keisha felt like she had been slapped. "I don't need Marcus's money, Mrs. Thompson. I need his love, and I thought his family would want him to be happy." When they returned to the table, the mood was even more awkward. Robert was opening his gifts, including the book Keisha had given him. He flipped through it quickly and set it aside. "Thank you all for the lovely gifts," he said. "This has been a wonderful birthday." But when he looked at Keisha, his eyes were cold. The evening ended with forced hugs and fake smiles. In the car driving home, Marcus was quiet and angry. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "They were terrible tonight." Keisha stared out the window at the city lights. They hate me, Marcus. Your whole family hates me. They don't hate you. They just need time to get used to us being married. It's been 6 months. How much more time do they need? Marcus didn't have an answer for that. Over the next few weeks, things got worse instead of better. When Marcus and Keisha invited the family to their house for dinner, everyone was suddenly busy. When they went to Linda's birthday party, people talked around Keisha like she was invisible. The worst part was watching Marcus try to defend her. It was putting stress on his relationships with his family, and Keisha could see how much it hurt him. She started making excuses not to go to family events. It was easier to stay home than to face their cold treatment, but staying away only made things worse. Now the family was saying that Keisha thought she was too good for them. They said she was trying to separate Marcus from his family so she could control him better. Marcus was caught in the middle, and their marriage was starting to feel the pressure. Some nights he came home tired and frustrated from family phone calls where someone had complained about Keisha. Other nights he worked late to avoid dealing with the family drama at all. Keisha began to wonder if love was enough to overcome this kind of hatred. She had never faced anything like this before, and she didn't know how much more she could take. What she didn't know was that things were about to get much worse. And when they did, the family's true feelings would come out in ways that would shock everyone. 1 year after their wedding, Marcus and Keisha's life together was about to change in ways they never expected. It started on a Tuesday morning when Marcus got a phone call that made his face turn white. Marcus was in his home office, drinking coffee and checking emails before heading to work. Keisha was in the kitchen making breakfast when she heard him shouting, "What do you mean they're pulling out? We have a contract." Keisha could hear the anger and panic in his voice. She turned off the stove and walked quietly toward his office. Marcus was pacing back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear. $3 million? You can't just walk away from $3 million. We've already started the work. Marcus's tech company had been working on a big project for Global Systems, Inc. It was the biggest contract they had ever signed. The money from that job was supposed to carry them through the next 2 years. When Marcus hung up the phone, he sat down hard in his chair and put his head in his hands. Keisha knocked softly on the door. "Marcus, what happened?" He looked up at her with tired eyes. "Global Systems just canceled our contract. They said they're having budget problems and can't afford to pay us." Keisha sat down in the chair across from his desk. "Can they do that? Don't you have legal protection?" They found a way out. Some small print in the contract about economic hardship. Marcus rubbed his face. "This is bad, Keisha. Really bad." That was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, more bad news kept coming. 2 other clients decided not to renew their contracts. The stock market was having problems, and companies were cutting back on spending. Marcus's business was built on helping other companies with their computer systems, but nobody wanted to spend money on that anymore. Then the investors started getting scared. These were the people who had given Marcus money to start and grow his company. When they saw that his big contracts were disappearing, they wanted their money back. Marcus was working 18 hours a day, trying to save his business. He would leave the house at 6 in the morning and come home after midnight. When he did come home, he was too tired and stressed to talk. He barely ate the dinners Keisha made for him. Keisha watched her husband getting thinner and more worried every day. She tried to help by taking care of everything at home, but she felt helpless. She wanted to do more, but Marcus kept saying he could handle it alone. Kevin, Marcus's business partner, was just as worried. They met every day to try to figure out how to save the company. The numbers were getting worse and worse. "We might have to let some people go," Kevin said during one of their meetings. "We can't pay everyone if we don't have any money coming in." Marcus hated the idea of firing his employees. Some of them had been with the company since the beginning. They had families and mortgages and kids in college. "There has to be another way," Marcus said. "Maybe we can get a loan from the bank." But the bank said no. Marcus's company owed too much money already, and without steady income, they couldn't get more credit. As the weeks went by, Marcus's family started hearing about his business problems. Linda called him almost every day to check on him, but she wasn't really being supportive. "I heard from Kevin that things are pretty bad," Linda said during one phone call. "How are you handling this financially?" Marcus was too tired to pretend. Everything was fine. It's tough, Linda. We might lose everything. Everything. What about the house? What about your savings? I might have to sell the house. And most of my savings are tied up in the business. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Linda said something that made Marcus's blood boil. Well, I guess we'll see what Keisha is really made of now. When the money runs out, we'll find out if she really loves you or if she was just after your wealth. Marcus wanted to hang up on his sister, but he was too tired to fight. Linda, don't start with that. I'm just saying, Marcus, this is going to be the real test. Some women stick around when times get tough and others disappear. After Marcus hung up, he felt even worse than before. His sister's words kept playing in his head. What if she was right? What if Keisha really had married him for his money? What would happen when the money was gone? At Patricia and Robert's house, the conversation was similar. They were worried about Marcus, but they were also talking about Keisha. Poor Marcus, Patricia said to her husband. He's going to lose everything he worked for. Robert nodded grimly. And then we'll see what that wife of his does. I bet she'll be looking for the door pretty quickly. Maybe it's for the best, Patricia said. If she leaves him now, at least he'll know the truth about why she married him. Kevin was having the same thoughts. During their business meetings, he would make comments about protecting personal assets. Marcus, you need to think about separating your personal money from the business, Kevin said. If the company goes under, you don't want to lose your house too. The house is already mortgaged to help fund the company, Marcus replied. If we fail, I lose everything anyway. Kevin shook his head. Man, I wish you had listened to me about that prenup. At least then your personal stuff would be protected. These conversations were happening all around Marcus, but he tried not to think about them. He had bigger problems to worry about. The company was running out of money fast, and he was about to have to tell his employees that they might not get paid next month. At home, Keisha could see how much stress Marcus was under. She tried to be supportive, but he was pulling away from her. He barely talked to her anymore, and when he did, he seemed distracted and worried. One evening, Keisha made his favorite dinner and waited for him to come home. When he finally arrived at 10 o'clock, the food was cold. I saved you some dinner, she said gently. Marcus looked at the plate like he had forgotten what food was. Thanks, but I'm not really hungry. Marcus, you have to eat something. You're losing weight. He sat down at the kitchen table and picked at the food. Keisha sat across from him, watching his tired face. Is there anything I can do to help? She asked. Marcus looked up at her with sad eyes. Unless you have $3 million lying around, I don't think so. It was meant to be a joke, but it wasn't funny. Keisha felt her heart break watching the man she loved suffer like this. Maybe I could get a job, she offered. Help with the bills while you're getting the business back on track. Marcus shook his head. It's not about paying our personal bills, Keisha. The company needs millions of dollars. A regular job isn't going to fix this. Over the next month, things got even worse. Marcus had to lay off half his employees. The office felt empty and sad. Kevin was talking about bankruptcy, which would mean closing the company completely. Marcus stopped sleeping well. He would lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling and worrying about everything. Keisha would find him in his office at 3 in the morning, still working on his computer, trying to find a solution that didn't exist. The stress was affecting their marriage too. Marcus was so focused on saving his business that he didn't have energy for anything else. He and Keisha barely talked anymore except about practical things like groceries and bills. Meanwhile, his family's comments were getting worse. Linda would call and ask leading questions about how Keisha was handling the financial stress. Robert and Patricia would make comments about women who abandon their husbands when times get tough. Even some of Marcus's friends were starting to whisper. At a business meeting, someone made a joke about fair-weather wives. Another friend asked if Marcus was worried about Keisha leaving him for someone with more money. All of these comments were like poison in Marcus's mind. He tried not to believe them, but when he was exhausted and scared, doubt started creeping in. He found himself watching Keisha sometimes, looking for signs that she was getting ready to leave. But Keisha wasn't going anywhere. She was more worried about Marcus than ever. She could see that the stress was killing him and she felt helpless to fix it. She had never seen the man she loved look so defeated. What Marcus didn't know was that Keisha had been making phone calls of her own. She was trying to find a way to help him, but she had to be very careful about how she did it. There were things about her life that Marcus didn't know, things that could solve all his problems. But she was afraid that if she revealed her secret now, he might think she had been lying to him all along, and with his family already convinced that she was a gold digger, the truth might make everything worse instead of better. As Marcus's company got closer and closer to bankruptcy, Keisha had to make a choice. She could watch the man she loved lose everything, or she could take a risk that might save him but could also destroy their marriage. Time was running out, and soon she would have to decide. Marcus was sitting in his office on a Friday morning, staring at papers that showed his company was almost broke. In 2 weeks, he would have to close everything down. 10 years of hard work would be gone. He put his head in his hands and tried not to cry. Kevin walked into the office carrying 2 cups of coffee. He looked as tired as Marcus felt. They had been best friends since college, and now they were going to lose their business together. The lawyers want to meet Monday to talk about bankruptcy, Kevin said, sitting down across from Marcus's desk. I'm sorry, man, we tried everything. Marcus nodded without looking up. He had already called the bank, talked to every investor he knew, and asked his family for help. Nobody could give him the $3 million he needed to save the company. What are we going to tell the employees? Marcus asked. The truth, I guess, that we're shutting down at the end of the month. Marcus thought about all the people who worked for him, good people with families who depended on their jobs. He felt sick thinking about letting them down. His phone rang, and Marcus almost didn't answer it. He was tired of bad news, but the caller ID showed a number he didn't know. Hello, this is Marcus Thompson. Mr. Thompson, my name is David Chen. I represent a private investment group. We understand your company is facing some financial difficulties. Marcus sat up straight. How did you know about that? We keep track of promising tech companies. We've been watching your work for some time, and we're impressed with what you've built. Kevin was watching Marcus with curious eyes. Marcus put the phone on speaker. What kind of investment group? Marcus asked. We prefer to remain private, but we're interested in helping your company survive this difficult time. Would you be willing to meet with our representatives? Marcus looked at Kevin, who was nodding eagerly. Yes, of course. When and where? How about Monday morning at 10? We can meet at your office. After Marcus hung up, he and Kevin stared at each other. Did that really just happen? Kevin asked. I think so, but it sounds too good to be true. At this point, we don't have anything to lose. Over the weekend, Marcus tried not to get his hopes up. He had been disappointed so many times in the past few months. But he couldn't help feeling a little excited. Maybe there was still a chance to save everything. He didn't tell Keisha about the phone call. She had been so worried about him lately, and he didn't want to get her hopes up if nothing came of it. On Monday morning, 2 men in expensive suits arrived at Marcus's office. They introduced themselves as lawyers representing the investment group. They were polite but didn't give many details about who they worked for. Our clients prefer to remain anonymous, one of the lawyers explained. But they're very interested in your company. The lawyers had done their homework. They knew everything about Marcus's business, his contracts, and his financial problems. They asked smart questions about his technology and his plans for the future. How much money do you need to get back on your feet? The second lawyer asked. Marcus swallowed hard. $2.8 million would cover our debts and give us enough operating money for the next year. The lawyers wrote down the number without blinking. That seems reasonable. Kevin looked like he might fall out of his chair. Are you saying you want to invest that much? We're prepared to offer exactly that amount, the first lawyer said. But there are conditions. Marcus's heart sank. There were always conditions, and they were usually impossible to meet. What kind of conditions? He asked. The interest rate would be very low, only 3%. You would have 5 years to pay it back, and our clients would like to remain completely anonymous. No publicity, no announcements, No questions about where the money came from. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. Banks wanted to charge him 15% interest, if they would lend to him at all. These people were offering him exactly what he needed at almost no cost. Why? Marcus asked. Why would you do this? The lawyers smiled. Our clients believe in supporting American businesses. Sometimes good companies just need a helping hand to get through tough times. By Friday of that week, the money was in Marcus's business account. The lawyers had moved faster than any bank Marcus had ever worked with. The paperwork was simple, and everything was legal and proper. Marcus called an emergency meeting with all his employees. When he told them the company was saved, the whole office cheered. People were crying and hugging each other. Kevin grabbed Marcus in a big bear hug. I can't believe it, Kevin kept saying. We're actually going to make it. That night, Marcus came home with the biggest smile Keisha had seen in months. He picked her up and spun her around in the kitchen. We did it, he shouted. The company is saved. Keisha hugged him tight, feeling relief wash over her. What happened? How did you save it? Marcus told her about the mysterious investors. As he talked, Keisha listened carefully, asking questions about the lawyers and the terms of the deal. 3% interest? She said. That's incredible. Who are these people? I don't know, Marcus admitted. They want to stay anonymous. But honestly, I don't care who they are. They saved my life. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's family heard about the miracle that had saved his business. Linda called to congratulate him, but she sounded confused. I'm so happy for you, she said. But I don't understand. Who would just give you $3 million? They're investors, Linda. They think the company has potential. But 3% interest? That's crazy low. Are you sure this is legitimate? Marcus was getting tired of questions he couldn't answer. The lawyers checked everything. It's completely legal. Robert and Patricia were having the same conversation at their house. They were relieved that Marcus wouldn't lose everything. But they were suspicious about the mysterious money. Nobody just gives away $3 million, Robert said to his wife. There has to be more to this story. Maybe it's someone Marcus helped in the past, Patricia suggested. Someone who wanted to pay him back. Kevin was also trying to figure out who the investors were. He had asked the lawyers more questions, but they always gave the same answer. Their clients valued privacy above everything else. I did some research, Kevin told Marcus. The money came through 3 different offshore accounts. Whoever these people are, they really don't want to be found. Does it matter? Marcus asked. The money is real, the contract is legal, and the company is safe. But Kevin was curious by nature. He kept digging, trying to trace the money back to its source. He found shell companies and foreign banks, but every trail led to a dead end. The mysterious investors seemed to know a lot about the tech industry. Through their lawyers, they sent suggestions about new markets Marcus should explore and strategies that could help the company grow. Marcus was amazed by how smart their advice was. Whoever these people were, they understood his business better than some of his own employees. It's like they've been watching us for years, he told Kevin. They know exactly what we need to do to succeed. As the months went by, Marcus's company not only survived, but started to grow again. The mysterious investors' advice was helping them win new contracts and expand into new areas. Marcus felt like the luckiest man alive. His business was better than ever. His marriage was strong, and even his relationship with his family was improving now that the crisis was over. But he still wondered about his mysterious benefactors. Who were they? Why had they chosen to help him? And why was it so important for them to stay hidden? Kevin continued his investigation, but he was no closer to finding answers. The money trail was too complex, and the lawyers wouldn't give him any more information. Maybe we should just be grateful and stop asking questions, Marcus said. But late at night, when he couldn't sleep, Marcus would wonder about the people who had saved his life. He wanted to thank them properly, but he didn't even know their names. What he didn't know was that the answer to his questions was much closer than he thought. In fact, the mysterious investor had been living in his house all along, sleeping next to him every night and watching him worry about problems she could have solved with a single phone call. Keisha had been very careful to hide her involvement, But keeping such a big secret from the man she loved was harder than she had expected. Every time Marcus talked about wanting to thank his mysterious benefactors, she felt guilty for not telling him the truth. But she was afraid of what would happen if he found out. Would he be angry that she had lied to him? Would his family's accusations seem more believable if they knew she had been hiding millions of dollars? For now, Marcus was happy, and the company was safe. That was what mattered most to Keisha. But she knew that secrets this big couldn't stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. And when it did, everything would change. 2 years had passed since Marcus and Keisha's wedding, and tonight was supposed to be a happy celebration. Their friends and family had gathered at the country club to surprise Marcus for his 47th birthday. The room was decorated with black and gold balloons, and everyone was dressed in their best clothes. Marcus stood near the bar, laughing with Kevin and some old friends from college. He looked relaxed and happy for the first time in years. His business was doing better than ever, thanks to the mysterious investors who had saved him. He had gained back the weight he lost during the crisis, and his smile was genuine again. Keisha was talking to Janet, Marcus's cousin, near the dance floor. She was wearing a simple black dress and her grandmother's pearl earrings. After 2 years of cold treatment from the family, she had learned to keep a low profile at these events. "You look beautiful tonight," Janet said. "That dress is perfect on you." "Thank you," Keisha replied, watching Marcus across the room. "I'm just happy to see him so relaxed." The last 2 years had been better for their marriage. With the business crisis over, Marcus was back to being the loving husband she had fallen in love with. But the family's attitude toward her hadn't changed much. They were polite now, but she could still feel their judgment. Linda was at a table with her husband Paul and Patricia and Robert. She had been drinking wine all evening and her voice was getting louder. Kevin and Amy were sitting with them, along with several other family members and friends. "I still can't believe someone just gave Marcus $3 million, Linda was saying. "It doesn't make sense." "Maybe they were old clients who wanted to help," Amy suggested. Linda shook her head. "Nobody gives away that kind of money without wanting something back." "There's more to this story," Patricia nodded in agreement. "I've always wondered about those mysterious investors. Who hides when they're doing something good?" Robert raised his wine glass. "Well, whoever they were, they saved our son's business. I'm grateful for that." As the evening went on, people took turns giving toasts to Marcus. Kevin talked about their friendship and business partnership. Robert gave a proud speech about watching his son succeed. Marcus's old college friends shared funny stories that made everyone laugh. Then Linda stood up, holding her wine glass. She had drunk more than usual and her cheeks were red. Everyone turned to look at her, expecting a nice toast for her brother's birthday. "I want to say something too," Linda announced loudly. Marcus smiled at his sister. "Go ahead, Linda." Linda looked around the room dramatically. "Marcus, you've always been lucky. Lucky in business, lucky in life. And some people around here have been very lucky too." She turned and stared directly at Keisha. The room started to feel uncomfortable. "Linda," Patricia said quietly, "maybe you should sit down." But Linda wasn't finished. The wine had loosened, her tongue, and 2 years of holding back her feelings were about to come pouring out. "I think it's time we talked about some truths," Linda continued. "We all know that some people marry for love, and others marry for money." Marcus's smile disappeared. "Linda, what are you doing?" "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," Linda said, swaying slightly. "Some of us work hard for everything we have. We don't get to marry into a comfortable lifestyle and then get saved by mysterious millionaires when things go bad." The room went completely silent. Keisha felt like everyone was staring at her. Her face felt hot with embarrassment and anger. "That's enough," Marcus said firmly, starting to walk toward his sister. But Linda raised her voice even more. "I mean, what are the chances? Marcus marries a gold digger, then just when he's about to lose all his money, some anonymous investor saves the day. It's like a fairy tale, isn't it?" Several people gasped. Paul grabbed his wife's arm and tried to pull her back down to her seat, but Linda pulled away from him. His gold-digging wife might have left him if the money ran out, but lucky for her, someone saved Marcus's company. I guess we should all be grateful to whoever that mysterious person was. Keisha had heard enough. She stood up slowly, her hands shaking with anger and hurt. Marcus was walking quickly toward Linda, his face red with rage, but Keisha held up her hand to stop him. "Linda," Keisha said in a calm, clear voice that carried across the silent room. "I think it's time you knew the truth." Everyone turned to look at Keisha. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Her fingers were trembling as she scrolled through her photos and documents. "You want to know who the mysterious investor was?" Keisha asked, looking around the room at all the faces staring at her. "You want to know who gave Marcus the $3 million that saved his company?" Marcus stopped walking and looked at his wife with confusion. "Keisha, what are you talking about?" Keisha held up her phone so everyone could see the screen. It showed a bank transfer receipt dated from 2 years ago. The amount was $2,800,000. The name on the account was Keisha Williams Hamilton. "I was the mysterious investor," Keisha said quietly. "I saved Marcus's company with my own money." The room exploded with shocked voices. Linda's mouth fell open. Patricia dropped her wine glass and it shattered on the floor. Kevin stared at the phone like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Marcus stood frozen in the middle of the room. "What? Keisha, what are you saying?" Keisha looked at her husband with tears in her eyes. "I'm saying I never needed your money, Marcus. I have my own money. I've always had my own money." She walked to the center of the room so everyone could hear her clearly. "My full name is Keisha Williams Hamilton. My grandfather was James Hamilton, who built Hamilton Shipping Company. When I turned 30, I inherited a trust fund worth $52 million. The silence in the room was deafening. Linda looked like she might faint. Robert's face was white with shock. "I met Marcus at a charity gala where I had donated $500,000 anonymously," Keisha continued. "I always donated anonymously because I didn't want people to treat me differently because of my money." She looked directly at Linda. "When Marcus's company was in trouble, I couldn't watch the man I love lose everything he had worked for. So I used my money to save him, through lawyers and offshore accounts so he wouldn't know it was me." Marcus was staring at his wife like he had never seen her before. $52 million, but you said you were between jobs. You said you were looking for work." "I didn't need to work, Marcus. I spend my time managing my charitable foundation and volunteering. But I was afraid to tell you about the money, because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have." Keisha's voice got stronger as she continued. "I've listened to your family call me a gold digger for 2 years. I've been treated like I was using you, when the truth is I saved your business with my own money." She turned to look at Linda, who was now sitting down and looking sick. "You want to know why I stayed when the money ran out? Because there was no money running out for me. I have more money than Marcus ever had. I stayed because I love him." Kevin found his voice first. "The lawyers, the offshore accounts, the business advice, that was all you?" "I hired the best financial lawyers in the country," Keisha said. "I made sure everything was legal and proper. And yes, the business advice came from my foundation's investment team." Patricia was crying now. "Oh my God, Keisha, what have we done?" Marcus walked slowly toward his wife. His face showed confusion, hurt, and amazement all at once. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep this secret?" Keisha's tears were flowing freely now. "Because I was afraid. I was afraid you would think I had been lying to you. I was afraid your family would find new reasons to hate me. I just wanted to be loved for myself, not my money." She looked around the room at all the shocked faces. "I never cared about your money, Marcus. I never needed your money. I only needed your love." Marcus reached out and took her hands. "You saved my company. You saved everything I worked for, and you let me think it was some stranger. I couldn't watch you lose your dreams," Keisha whispered. "I love you too much." Linda stood up slowly, her face full of shame. "Keisha, I don't know what to say. I was so wrong about everything." "We all were," Robert said, standing up and walking toward Keisha. "We treated you terribly, and the whole time you were the one helping our family." Patricia was sobbing. Can you ever forgive us? We said such horrible things. Keisha looked around the room at Marcus's family and friends. These people who had judged her and whispered about her for 2 years were now looking at her with shame and regret. I forgave you a long time ago, Keisha said softly. I just wanted to be part of this family. I wanted you to accept me. Marcus pulled his wife into his arms and held her tight. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you saved everything and never told me. I would do it again, Keisha said, looking up at him. I would do anything for you. The party turned into something completely different after that. One by one, family members came up to Keisha to apologize. Linda was crying as she hugged Keisha and begged for forgiveness. Kevin shook his head in amazement, realizing that all his investigating had been trying to find the woman who was right in front of him. As the evening ended, Marcus and Keisha stood together watching their family and friends slowly accept the truth. The woman they had called a gold digger was actually wealthier than any of them.